He ruled the most powerful empire the world had ever seen. Legions marched at his command, millions bowed before him, and yet every single morning, Marcus Aurelius fought the hardest battle any human being can face. A war not against armies, but against his own mind. Not against barbarian hordes at the frontier, not against scheming senators in Rome, against his own anger, his own laziness, his own ego. While other emperors drowned in luxury and madness, this one sat alone in his tent during wartime and wrote a journal never meant to be read by anyone. Never meant to be read. A journal so raw, so brutally honest, that nearly 2,000 years later it still cuts through the noise of modern life like a blade. Today we unlock the story of the most powerful man in the ancient world, a man who understood that true power has nothing to do with thrones or armies. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. This is the emperor who conquered himself. Here is something most people never realize about Marcus Aurelius. He never wanted to be emperor. Never. As a boy growing up in Roman aristocracy, Marcus had one obsession, and it was not power, it was philosophy. While other young nobles practiced swordsmanship and dreamed of military glory, Marcus devoured books. He studied logic with private tutors. He slept on the hard ground to toughen his body, not for war, but for the discipline of the mind. And then Emperor Hadrian noticed him. Hadrian saw something in this quiet, bookish boy that terrified the rest of Rome. He arranged for Marcus to be adopted into the imperial succession. Imagine being told at 17 that one day, the entire civilized world will rest on your shoulders, and all you ever wanted was to read Epictetus in peace. As Marcus himself would later write, the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. He watched emperor after emperor fall to paranoia, cruelty, and madness. Paranoia, cruelty, madness. And yet destiny demanded he step into the arena. But what makes Marcus extraordinary is not that he became emperor. It is what he did once he got there. What Marcus did was something no emperor before or after him ever attempted. He kept a private journal, not for publication, not for posterity. He wrote letters to himself as warfare against his own weaknesses. We call it meditations today, but Marcus never gave it a title. He never intended anyone to read it. These were raw, unfiltered conversations between Marcus, and they are brutal. Raw, unfiltered, brutal. There is no boasting, no self-congratulation. The most powerful man alive spent his private hours writing things like, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being." Think about that. The Emperor of Rome had to motivate himself to get out of bed, just like you, just like me. That is the radical honesty of meditations. It strips away every illusion of superhuman greatness and reveals something far more powerful. A man at war with his own worst impulses, winning one day at a time. If this ancient wisdom is opening your eyes, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring the depths of human wisdom with me. Because what comes next might change how you see your entire morning routine. The journal reveals something disturbing about his daily habits. Every single morning, Marcus Aurelius went to war, not on the battlefield, inside his own skull. Every morning, he wrote himself instructions for the day ahead, anticipating every weakness, every temptation, every moment where his lower self would try to seize control. He would remind himself, when you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love. But then, in the very next line, he would warn himself about the difficult people he would face. The liars, the ungrateful, the envious. He did not pretend the world was beautiful. He prepared for its ugliness. This is what separates Marcus from every motivational speaker you have ever heard. He was not doing positive thinking. He was practicing what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, the deliberate rehearsal of everything that could go wrong. By imagining the worst each morning, nothing could surprise him. Nothing could break him. Every sunrise was a battle, every battle a victory, and every victory made the crown a little lighter. Most people run from their flaws. Marcus sat with his every single day, and that daily discipline connects to something the Stoics understood better than anyone. Marcus did not invent his approach to life. He inherited it from a tradition that began centuries before him. Stoicism. Stoicism, ancient, unbreakable. And the Stoic principle that shaped Marcus more than any other was the dichotomy of control. The idea is devastatingly simple. Some things are in your power and some things are not. Your thoughts are in your power, your reactions, your judgments, your effort. Everything else, the weather, other people's opinions, the outcome of your plans, whether you live or die, is not. As Epictetus, the former slave who became Marcus's greatest philosophical influence, once taught, it is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things. Marcus took this to heart in the most extreme way possible. Imagine being emperor during one of the worst plagues in history, losing generals, losing friends, losing your own children, and still writing in your journal. The only thing I truly control is how I respond. That is not denial. That is the most radical form of acceptance the human mind has ever produced. Radical acceptance power. Marcus built an invisible shield around his mind, not to avoid suffering, but to meet it standing. Nothing would test that shield like what came next. In the year 165 AD, Roman soldiers returned from the east carrying something far deadlier than any weapon. A plague that would kill between 5 and 10 million people across the empire. The Antonine Plague, named after Marcus's own dynasty, ravaged Rome for over a decade. Bodies piled in the streets, the army was decimated, trade collapsed. And while this biological apocalypse consumed his empire, Germanic tribes launched a massive invasion across the northern frontier. Total chaos. Most leaders would have crumbled. Many Roman emperors before Marcus had gone mad under far less pressure. But Marcus did something extraordinary. He personally led his troops to the frontier. He spent years in freezing military camps far from the comforts of Rome, fighting a war he never wanted. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. What stands in the way becomes the way. The plague, the war, the death of his children. Every obstacle became his training ground. Every catastrophe became a chance to practice what he preached. Obstacle becomes the way. He did not just survive chaos, he refined himself through it, and in the middle of all that destruction, he discovered something crucial about anger. Of all the enemies Marcus Aurelius fought, the one he feared most lived inside him, his own anger. And he had every reason to be furious. Senators plotted against him in secret. His trusted general Avidius Cassius launched a full rebellion. His own wife Faustina was rumored to be unfaithful. The people he served often showed no gratitude whatsoever, and yet Marcus wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it." He understood that anger is never really about what happened. It is about the story you tell yourself about what happened. The story you tell yourself. When Cassius rebelled and was killed by his own soldiers, Marcus refused to punish the conspirators. He burned Cassius's private letters unread so that no one else would be implicated. The most powerful man in the world chose mercy when everyone expected blood. This was not weakness. This was the supreme demonstration of self-mastery. Anyone can react with fury, but only the strongest respond with wisdom. Marcus did not suppress his anger. He examined it. He questioned it. He dissolved it with reason. That is the difference between control and true conquest, and this practice led him to confront the ultimate truth. Marcus Aurelius thought about death constantly, not with fear, not with dread. With purpose, he used death as a compass that pointed him toward what truly mattered. It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. Every morning Marcus reminded himself that this day could be his last. He looked at the grand palaces of Rome and saw future ruins. He looked at the powerful people around him and saw skeletons, not because he was morbid, but because impermanence was his greatest teacher. Impermanence, greatest teacher. He wrote about Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Augustus, all the titans who came before him. Where are they now? Dust. The same dust that will one day claim you and me and everything we love. But here is the twist most people miss about memento mori. It is not depressing, it is liberating. When you truly accept that your time is limited, petty grudges become ridiculous. Status games become laughable. The only thing that matters is this moment, this breath, this choice to be virtuous. Death does not make life meaningless. It makes every single second sacred. And Marcus used that awareness to build something inside himself that nothing external could ever touch. The Stoics had a concept that Marcus perfected more than anyone in history: They called it the inner citadel. Inner citadel unbreakable. Imagine a fortress at the center of your mind, a place where no external force, no plague, no war, no betrayal, no grief can ever penetrate. Not because you do not feel these things, but because your deepest self remains untouched by them. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. This is not escapism. This is the most advanced form of psychological resilience ever articulated. You can retreat into yourself at any moment you choose. Marcus wrote those words while sleeping in a military tent, surrounded by death, disease, and the constant threat of assassination. He was not running from reality. He was proving that there is a place inside every human being that reality cannot reach. A fortress in the mind, a diamond of unshakable peace. Modern psychology calls this resilience. Cognitive behavioral therapy calls this reframing. Marcus Aurelius called it simply doing your job as a human being. The citadel within you has always existed. You just forgot how to enter it. But building this inner fortress required something most people are never willing to sacrifice. Marcus Aurelius could have retired. He could have handed the wars to his generals, returned to Rome, and spent his remaining years reading philosophy in a beautiful garden. Nobody would have blamed him. Nobody. He was tired, he was sick, he had lost children. He had spent years in freezing military camps when he could have been in the warmth of the imperial palace. But Marcus understood something that separates the truly great from everyone else. 1. Comfort is the enemy of growth. 2. Duty is not a burden but a privilege. 3. Your position exists to serve those who depend on you. That is the Philosopher King paradox. Philosopher King paradox. The person most qualified to walk away from power is the very person who must stay. As Marcus wrote near the end of his life, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. He did not philosophize about virtue from an ivory tower. He practiced it in the mud, in the blood, in the brutal reality of governing an empire at war. He did not just write about the good life, he lived it. Every day, every decision, until his final breath. And it is that final chapter that reveals the greatest lesson Marcus ever left us. On March 17th, 180 AD, Marcus Aurelius lay dying in a military camp near modern-day Vienna. He was 58 years old. He had spent the last years of his life fighting wars he never wanted, governing an empire he never asked for, and writing a journal he believed would disappear with him. Dying alone in a tent, his final words to his officers were devastatingly simple. Go to the rising sun, for I am already setting. No grand speeches, no desperate clinging to life, just acceptance, just peace, and here is what makes this story immortal. That private journal he never meant anyone to read became one of the most important books in human history. Meditations has guided kings, presidents, generals, and ordinary people through their darkest hours for nearly 2,000 years. The emperor who conquered himself conquered eternity. His empire crumbled, his dynasty ended, but his words, those raw, honest, painful conversations with himself, they endure forever, because Marcus proved something no other emperor ever could. True power. True power is not conquering nations. It is conquering yourself, your anger, your fear, your ego, your desperate need to be praised, to be right, to be remembered. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. So choose your thoughts wisely, because you are not just living a life, you are becoming one. Every single morning you face the same battle Marcus faced 2,000 years ago. The question is, will you fight it? If you made it this far, comment Inner Citadel below. That phrase is the key Marcus left for those brave enough to build their own fortress of the mind. Inner Citadel unlocked. The wisdom of the ages is yours. Use it well.